Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, founder of a revolutionary medical sales training and mentorship program called the Medical Sales Career Builder, and I'm also host of the Medical Sales Podcast. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire world. It doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing and diagnostic lab, you name it, you will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 10% performer within your role, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. And remember, I am a medical sales expert sharing my own opinion about this amazing industry and how it can change your life. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel. And today we have with us another special guest, and he goes by the name of Andrie Leday. Now, what makes this so special is Andrie was on our show about 3 years ago. And anyone listening can imagine how much has changed in the past 3 years. And it means the same thing for Andrie Leday. He is the U.S. Commercial Vice President of Joint Reconstruction and Enabling Technologies at Johnson & Johnson. And these things that he's about to share with us are things you absolutely want to hear. As always, we do our best to bring you guests that are doing things differently in the medical sales space, and I really do hope you enjoy this interview. Take us to the last time we spoke. I mean, you were a regional manager.
I think it was.
And you were in, I think did you have a couple states or just one state?
I was a regional vice president for spine and enabling technology.
Okay.
I think at the time. So robotics navigation. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I gotta hear the whole thing. I gotta hear how it all happened. So take us back to our last episode. Let's do this. From your best memory, give us the state of the world, the last time we spoke, what you were in front of and what you were facing, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, really great question. I'm trying to think state of the world. I'll start the broader world and then where my world was. I think we were just coming out of the pandemic, if I remember correctly. And from a social awareness, we were just, I would say, still in the thick of, I think, the aftermath of George Floyd, where some of the, I would say, movement for improvement was still fresh, but also to the entire country grappling with what we had all witnessed and trying to figure out what that meant from a broader state of affairs.
Right.
From a corporate standpoint, I would say a lot of organizations recognizing that something needed to be done, wanted to be done, but what does it look like?
Sure.
Fast forward to today, it's actually 180 degrees different from probably that standpoint. Yeah. But that being said, from a personal standpoint, I was in the midst of trying to figure out not just what that meant for me individually as a professional in the medical sales space, but what does it mean for others like me, or even folks who were I would say considered allies that may not look like me. What can we do? How do we navigate what is this new reality? And for me, I think one of the awakenings that I drew from those months and days was I was no longer in a mindset to work hard enough just to preserve what I had.
Give us a little bit more. Give us a little bit more on that. I want to get that. Make sure that's crystal clear.
Recognizing that every moment, position, role in life, for the most part, is temporary in nature.
There.
And so recognizing that that's a moment in time, not that it's frivolous, but it's a moment in time. My goal was to maximize those moments in time for the greatest impact. I take that into my personal life as a father. I travel quite a bit as a husband for my wife of now 24 years. I recognize that I can't necessarily dictate the amount of time I'm going to have for moments, but what I can dictate is the quality of the interaction and the impact I have while I'm there. So
I love that. But I still want to, can you give me an example of someone, maybe the same two people, same situation. One of them is thinking the way you've just described. One of them is thinking, not the way you described, maybe more typical. And what does the experience look like for both of them?
well, I can say from a very honest position, I've sat in both of those spaces mentally and physically. So I can recognize the what I consider growth that I've had over my career, such that I've shifted to the former.
Sure.
But I would say the difference would be whether or not to make some of these bold decisions to speak up for yourself and advocate for yourself, for whether it be a promotion, whether it be for a change within just some of the functions and ways of working in a work setting that may be a little more bold, or maybe they've been shot down once or twice, but it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And instead of putting your neck out there to try it, because if you're wrong, what happens if you're wrong? Man, you can get fired, or you can get demoted, or you can get all these other things, or man, your paycheck that you bring home to feed your family could be greatly altered. So I've been that person before early in my career. So I recognize that, and it's very human nature for everyone to think that way. I say the epiphany in recognizing that it's a moment in time allows me to be a little less hinged, or I would say strapped to those confines.
Sure.
And it allows me to take on greater risk, greater opportunities, recognizing it's okay to fail at something, but you truly only fail if you don't get back up and take and apply those learnings.
Fair.
And either one, help yourself or help someone else with those learnings. And so it's not for a loss. The other thing is, Robert, now I'm coming up on 25 years in this space. I'm always humbled by the fact that if whatever happened tomorrow took away this role, took away this position, that took away this company, whoever it is I work for, they haven't taken away my knowledge and experience. They haven't taken away my hunger to succeed and deliver and service patients, service surgeons, service this medical sales community, such that if I had to start back over, put scrubs back on, go into an OR and learn a completely new condition, if given that opportunity, I would just rebuild it again with God's grace. And so that's how I've always, I would say more recently, been energized and I would say reinforced by that reality.
So would you say that with this kind of outlook, you're more appreciative of incremental change as opposed to needing to see the change you want that day? Like that's the difference. And it sounds like more respect for the process of what incremental change looks like and how, I guess, permanent it can be, or not quite.
I honestly would say it's not. I'm looking for bold change.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Because I do have 9 times out of 10, I think of this, I don't think of permanence. I think of this moment in time to actually do something and make an impact. So creating a new sales model, creating a new go-to-market strategy, you name it. I do so with urgency, a greater urgency than I would have earlier in my career. Recognizing again, just that potential moment in time moving at a pace that I may not be aware of. So what can I do today? What can I help others do today so that we can maximize and multiply that impact?
Got it. Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, then take us to the specifics then. So you were in your position.
Mm-hmm.
The world was going crazy, and it still is, but the world was going crazy at the time. And now you're, for as much as you can share, what was influencing the decision? When did you start choosing differently? What happened?
Yeah. It was interesting. I had a really successful career with my prior organization, 13 years or so in the space, continuous, I would say, career progression with success along the way, and had developed a pretty strong brand and currency within the organization, first name basis with the, current, and still CEO of that organization. Still have a deep respect for he and his team and their leadership. But I also recognize that the opportunities that were before me, I still had, I think at the time when my new company gave me a call, J&J gave me a call. I had two other US VP roles ahead of me with my prior company. And I looked at those opportunities, and one of them, it definitely wasn't equitable to the things that they claimed it needed to fill, versus what other counterparts in similar titles, but different levels of impact were being offered.
Really?
And so for me, I wanted to go somewhere where my experience and my leadership would have value, where my passion for culture and developing high-performing cultures with talents from all walks of life would be accepted, and we'd be able to lean into that strength and rigor, which we know that diversity provides. And so that's when I had an amazing opportunity in this phone call from my current company. And the one thing that really let me know it was the right move, when we had a conversation early on, just made sure they knew I'm a champion of change. I'm a stalwart champion of diversity, engagement, and inclusion. I'm unapologetic about it. And if that is a challenge or a problem, let's please separate now and not proceed. Fortunately, I think that found home in not only the work that I've been able to deliver, but also the way I go about it. And so fast forward, had a chance to lead the ASC organization and really help put some form to what was a new space within my current company. Also happens to be one of the strongest growing channels within the orthopedic space, and also probably one of the most diverse teams across the orthopedics organization as well. And so it's always great to see all of this talent become the new reality that we can all lean on and recognize a new pathway forward.
Okay. Now, remember, Andre, this is all edited, so I'm gonna get raw right now,
All right.
and say what you can, and don't worry, it's all edited. So let me understand, because I want to just make sure I'm capturing everything. So first, I know I'm kind of spending a lot of time there, but I just want to make sure I have it clear.
Yeah.
Initially, you said that what you've learned is be careful what you, I guess, put your name on, because you can lose your job. On the same token, you were saying, but even with that being said, you're bolder than you've ever been, and you realize that you can make significant impacts in the moment by maintaining being bold. So I just want to marry the two ideas there. Are you saying be bold but still be more cautious, or what?
I think it's going to depend on the season you're in.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest. So I can't tell you that young Andre, 2 or 3 years into the space, would recognize the strength of being bold under my own energy and confidence. I can't tell you that I had that recognition. But for those that have it early enough, that have the table stakes of performance that allows them to also, I would say, influence that confidence in others.
Sure.
I hope they embrace it sooner than I have in my career. But
Gotcha.
that's what I would say. And it has been liberating to find that. It has been, I would say, energizing as well.
Okay, I'm
saying. And so, that's what I would say to clarify that. Does that clarify?
Yeah. So it sounds like you were saying you used to kind of be maybe overly cautious, and now you're still smart, but because the moments are so important and there's such a big impact to make, you're stepping in and you're making it.
Got to. Have no choice.
Okay. So now let's talk real
All
here.
right.
So, you're with Medtronic.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a poster child for diversity as far as the common medical sales world is concerned. Our program, we put thousands of people into positions every year, and uh, Medtronic is a popular one, and so is J&J. But I know you're a champion for diversity. I know you are, if anything needs to be evaluated and improved, to have a more diverse team, which, like you said, is a beneficial benefit, is a business benefit. I think everybody talks about diversity. We need diversity, but nobody stresses why and the studies that have been done. Real studies by McKinsey and other companies, Deloitte,
100% Harvard, you name
that
it.
literally say, in some cases, up to 40% business improvement, 40% more revenue when you choose to have a diverse team versus a homogenous team. So I know you're a champion for diversity. So being at a company that kind of has the reputation for being that and experiencing something that I talk to us a little bit about that. You were there for 13 years. So I would think you know very well what the culture looks like. Had the culture started to change? Was it because the level you were finally reaching, things just looked different? What was going on?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if it was changing any different than any other organization. But for me, I felt like my ability to bring new impact was probably at a ceiling, if I could be honest.
Okay.
And I appreciated every bit of it, appreciated the people I had a chance to work alongside every day. Quite a few of our leaders also in similar work in support of diversity had left the organization as well. And so it was in I would say a stable place from just the programs and things happening. But I felt like my ability to help support greater impact was probably at a ceiling.
So what is?
Yeah.
Oh no, so go ahead, please.
So when I think about that, and then I had again this broader opportunity with J&J come along, who was a company, honestly, there were probably one of two companies that I told myself I'd ever leave my prior employer for. J&J was one of them.
Wow.
And so to know that they had a reputation for diversity that I saw very visibly whenever I had a chance to interact with them at various conferences, the marketing that they put forth, you name it. It was very apparent that they had an ecosystem for diversity, and it wasn't just U.S. It was global.
Sure.
And so I found that to be also really attractive. And so it was an opportunity for me to just, I would say, take some of the learnings and amazing experiences I had at Medtronic and see if they could take root and provide value elsewhere, if I'm being honest.
So it was less about, Medtronic had things in an interesting way. They were doing everything the way they've always been doing it. They were doing it right. It's just that now you're like, wait a minute, I've done a lot here. I can do more. And this opportunity will allow me to do that to the fullest degree.
Yeah, well, that was my hypothesis, right? I had not worked directly in the system, but I'd seen outwardly some really great work, really great champions across the J&J landscape on both their pharmaceutical, their consumer side, as well as, of course, the med device side. And so, I saw it as an opportunity for me to not only learn, but also hopefully contribute.
So if you were to just say, this company is kind of like the poster child for where companies should strive to be in regard to diversity, J&J would probably be one of the companies you'd mention.
Absolutely. I put it right at the very top of the list amongst others. Yeah.
So, maybe just top three things. Give us the top three things that make that so. What should companies, if a CEO or a VP is listening to this right now and they're thinking about what we're talking about, what should they start looking into within their own organization? Those top three things that J&J is currently doing that you say is kind of like the poster child for what it should look like.
I'll tell you one specific that really speaks to me personally. So when I joined J&J, there was an opportunity to look at various ERGs, employee resource groups that had some opportunities for co-chair and chair support. And the Alliance for Diverse Abilities came forth. And so that included employees from across the globe that had neurodiversity, autism, physical disabilities, as well as mental health. Right. And so recognizing that J&J has a, World Mental Health Day, International, Disabilities Day, and they lean into that. Not only that, the employees, for instance, we have some amazing employees from all walks of life, and in particular, neurodiversity, having a home within our workspace and seeing some of our strongest and brightest employees that may be autistic taking the helm and still finding their voice to share their experiences that help make us a better company, and finding that we have, more ways to provide some accommodations, but those accommodations are investments because we're getting all of this amazing talent from new walks of life that honestly, I don't know that many companies tap into. So recognizing, but creating a safe space and an opportunity for talent from all walks of life to be elevated, that was really, really telling for me. So I'm honored to serve as one of the co-chairs for our Alliance for Diverse Abilities Employee Resource Group among some of the other ERGs we have.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic. How is this new position from a leadership perspective and what you're responsible to execute different from the last one?
Yeah, so my current role, I'm the U.S. Commercial Vice President for Joint Reconstruction as well as Enabling Technology. So what that provides is not only support for our direct and indirect sales organizations across the U.S. for our hips, knees, shoulder implants, but also all of the technology, so robotics, navigation, you name it, that also support our procedures as well as our techniques. So our kinematic alignment, inverse kinematic alignments, all of the very unique techniques that J&J is embracing and broadening in the orthopedic space. So that's the new role. And it's an awesome responsibility. You're talking, I would say, close to 1,300 or so people across the U.S. that are part of our team and broader organization. It's not for the faint of heart. It's dynamic, but I love the energy. I love the pace. I love the amazing business leaders we get a chance to work with. So some of our indirect sales organizations, I mean, you're talking, 100 plus, $200 plus $1 million, business partners that we're working alongside. And some of these folks are leading organizations as big as the people we're competing against. And I'm proud to, call them partners in our sales battles. So it's fantastic.
How long have you been in the role now?
This role, a whole month and 2 weeks.
It's a long time.
That's
so talk to us. Is it still too early to say what it is or what it isn't? Or would you say that the learning curve has been pretty easy or, challenging? What's been the experience like?
I've been around a while, Samuel. I've touched so many different therapeutic areas. I don't think it's too early to say that this could be the most dynamic and I would say potentially most positive impact and opportunity that I've ever had in my career.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
So not just from a sales standpoint,
right,
and the sheer magnitude of that, but getting a chance to work with some really talented surgeons as well from all walks of life, from all across the world. Have an opportunity. I just ran into a med school student who is actually in a pretty prestigious program, and he happens to be a fellow, of color. And so he and I got a chance to talk about our experiences, and he was looking for potential mentorship. And so I was able to connect him with a surgeon that I thought, highly of, that I thought could help him, navigate some opportunities in his life. And so just being able to have, opportunities like that, supporting women in orthopedics, which is so underserved. We have so many talented surgeons that are, female, and oftentimes they feel unseen. They are, unheard. They are underrepresented in some of the work and some of the studies, that are afoot. And then you've got, of course, I think the up and coming surgeons. You have some of them that are carving their way through granite, which is uh, the standard that's always been from either the academic setting for med device, but even beyond. And so getting a chance to plug into some of this, new energy in the orthopedic space has been pretty awesome as well. And I think we can see within one another that desire to do something different, that desire to do something bold. And so iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel. And so it's been nice to mix it up. And so we're doing some collaboration there. But, along the way, we're still, heavily reliant on our academic medical centers and just their ability to help take some of the latest and greatest, learnings and techniques and help to multiply that across the stratosphere for surgeons entering into the space as well. And so it's been great. It's been good.
Okay, that's fantastic. So, we are in a unique environment in 2024, and the new administration, there's been concerns that are they going to be really changing the way medical sales operates with regulatory issues, with different things. And I'm sure that someone in your position kind of saw what could be, meaning, people are talking about it now, but you probably, were considering it, who knows, a year in advance or 6 months in advance, long before it actually happened. With that being said, can you give us a little bit about what is the reality? Is there really a concern to have? Is it not what people think? Is it a big fat question mark? Where would you place everything as far as regulatory, what's new now, and how medical sales is looking at it?
It's going to vary. I think great question about regulatory trends and what's happening. I would say it's going to depend on every company and where they're at in their maturation, where they're at in their product life cycle, you name it. I would say from a J&J MedTech standpoint, we feel like we're in a strong position regardless of wherever the regulatory winds may blow.
Sure.
And that's from one, making sure that we have folks on the Hill, just making sure we understand what's coming our way before it actually hits, so that we can actually make some of the changes if necessary to live into those changes and do so pretty expeditiously. But by and large, I think the needs for greater efficiency in medical care are not going away. More cost savings and value for surgical and non-surgical care, that's not going away. And then also, I would say just the need for more surgeons, more providers, you name it. How do we help them feel this is a comfortable space where they want to dedicate the next 35 years of their life?
Right.
And so I don't think any of that's going to necessarily go away.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue to see, I think, all of the systems ask for more with less. And so, again, just living into the continuous improvement process, not saying, or getting comfortable at any moment that we've arrived at something that this is the plan that's going to take us the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. Most plans will probably last you at best 2 years. So how do you have that constant improvement process mindset afoot? Not just your role, but every role across your organization is going to be critically important.
Got it. For those listening right now that are maybe they're in first line leadership and they're trying to follow your path and get into second line leadership and beyond, with what we just said, regards to preparing yourself for what's going on in these current times, is there any advice you'd give them specifically to how to manage what they should be doing in 2024?
Well, in 2024, they've got about a month left. So I'm going to say read a lot of books quickly. But I would say just going forward, my friend, try to be multidimensional as much as possible. Be a big leader. So not just your job, right? If you're a first line leader, many of us, and I say us, we have this mindset that I just need to manage my team. They need to get their expense reports in on time. Sales need to be here. And if all of that is good to go, no worries, everything is right in the world. The reality is big leaders think beyond that. They think about, okay, how do I make sure that I'm coaching my team and creating a succession plan. I'm creating the next wave of leaders to take on more responsibility in this organization, whether it be in marketing, whether it be in commercial ops, whether it be somewhere else. I'm helping to bring more value from what comes from my team. Number two, they're supporting initiatives and working with internal teams to make them better, even though it's not a part of their job description, even though they don't have the extra hour in the day from their 12-hour working day to figure out how to just contribute to better work streams. I talked to you earlier about the continuous improvement process. What are some of the things that can be brought forth? Not just complaints or challenges, but for every challenge you bring forth or an opportunity, you're bringing at minimum 2 to 3 potential solutions that you've helped to vet out to be a part of the solution, not just echoing the problem, because I'm sure all organizations hear that enough. So things like that, I think, are critically important. When you think about initiatives outside of the X's and O's on the balance sheet, how can you also be a champion for culture improvement, workplace positivity, making sure that all employees feel recognized and feel heard, that you're recruiting the next wave of future talent from outside the organization to the organization? Those are all the things that big leaders, even in a first line role, can do that will not only help them prepare themselves for greater opportunity, but also help to elevate their organization along the way.
So you said something that I want to understand better. You highlighted, even if you don't have that hour, find that hour to give what you're talking about time. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about now. You're in Q4. Your team needs to perform. You guys are 10% away from hitting goal, and all engines are go. And you know that goals are going to be increased going into Q1 of 2025. So your mind, it's hard for you to wrap yourself around what else needs to be done to be more along the lines of being a big leader. With that specific scenario in mind, what would you tell that person to try to figure out? Cut into personal time, try to delegate more? Like what advice would you give them? I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And I want to let you know our programs cover the entire career of a medical sales professional. From getting into the medical sales industry, to training on how to be a top performer in the medical sales industry, to masterfully navigating your career to executive level leadership. These programs are personalized and customized for your specific career and background, and trained by over 50 experts, including surgeons. Our results speak for ourselves, and we're landing positions for our candidates in less than 120 days in top medical technology companies like Stryker, Medtronic, Merck, Abbott, you name it. Would you run an Ironman race without training and a strategy? You wouldn't. So why are you trying to do the same with a medical sales position? You need training, you need a strategy, and you need to visit evolveyoursuccess.com, fill out the application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and let's get you into the position that you've always dreamed of.
I would say for those trying to find and cherish time is your currency. So whenever you're a busy leader, time is your currency. Don't spend your currency frivolously or allow others to spend your currency frivolously. There are certain meetings, calls, blocks of time on Zoom, Teams, you name it, that you and I both know could have been a 10-minute phone conversation. Don't be afraid to press back and regain that time. In I would say concert to that, if you're a leader who has similar meetings for your team, be mindful of that and start it 5 minutes later. Cut 5 minutes off at the end to give people that energy back before they're plugged into or sucked into the next obligation. So there's things we can all do to lean into preservation of energy or finding a way to regain some energy before we reinitiate into other activities. And as someone who's obviously a father of 4, I serve on 4 boards currently right now, as well as do a lot of mentorship and some other things. I will say that time is so precious for me outside of work because it gives me so much energy and strength back. If I did not have those things, I would not be the business leader that I am from Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or 7 to 6. So I know that those things feed my soul. And if I don't have those things, I'm not going to show up as the full Andrie I need to those that depend on me most, my family and or the employees that I lead.
So in your opinion, at your level, is it kosher to have a business conversation on Thanksgiving because it's so critically important? Or is it the opposite? You need to be ridiculously strict about your personal time and shouldn't be infringed upon in any way, shape, or form.
I'm going to say if someone were to call me on Thanksgiving, I would expect that a patient is in the fray. And I will always pick up the phone if there's a patient or a supply need that serves a patient on Thanksgiving. Other than that, yesterday I drove with my family, 3.5 hours to my parents' house on Thanksgiving Day through traffic. My work phone was here.
Wow.
My work phone was here. And those that need to get a hold of me know how to get a hold of me for something critical. My personal phone was here. So no distractions. I tried my best to leave that when the precious moments with my aging parents and my family are also paramount.
So let's talk about this, because this is what I love about having you on, Andre, is we can talk about the stuff that I don't know, it's just not talked about. So I would say even now, the age-old adage is if you work for a company and you want to get ahead, you better let that company know that you are ultimately at their disposal and you will be available whenever needed. So, for example, the manager or even individual contributor that's thinking about the next step and there's an urgent decision to make, it can wait, but they know that if they do it now, it's going to compromise their personal time, but it might make an impression on the company. What would you tell this person, especially in line with what you just said? You left your work phone at home. What would you tell someone that's trying to get to where you are, how to better manage that or how to best manage that?
Yeah. I think, again, for everyone, that's going to be such a personal decision. I really mean that. I also recognize for leaders in roles beyond, where I am, like our CEO, I can't imagine he left his phone at home somewhere, right? Maybe he did. I pray he did. But I also recognize being a CEO of a Fortune 500 global organization, your demands are going to be different. And you are the face of, you are the pulse of an organization and lead. So I recognize that may be a limitation for someone like me. I may not be cut of the cloth to be someone's next CEO because of where I am currently in my life. Now, I won't always be here. My children are growing up and getting into things and doing their own things, and soon will be out of the house here, such that I will pivot in my life and be in a different situation. But it's such a personal decision. I would say I would ask anyone just to be true to themselves. Be true to themselves and recognize what they would be making a trade-off for potentially. It's not always. There's some executives that are very busy and they find a way to do it all. But recognize the potential and the trade-offs and do so mindfully. And it's a very personal choice on whether or not you make those trade-offs, whether it be with family, whether it be your health, whether it be time with friends, you name it, travel. Right. Those are things I think I wish I could give advice to people, but it's such a personal decision.
Yeah. So then would you say then as a leader, is it better for the manager to reach out to their team just depending on the situation and feel warranted to call them even on their holidays or because something's so pressing? Or is it better to just, no matter what, as a leader, just don't ever reach out to your team when they're on holidays or PTO or anything like that, regardless what's going on?
Yeah, if I would say before that even happens, the leader should set an expectation that there is redundancy in things that need to be done or covered. They're checking in and setting expectations before we all go on vacation that someone's up to speed elsewhere to handle things while they're away. If we're doing these things right, we're entrusting members of our team or our peers to act on our behalf if we're not there. And I'm sure there are certain critical roles throughout any organization where that person is just that person, whether it be a specific engineer or whatever the case may be for, a product line or something of that sort. I protect that time for my people.
Sure.
When my people are off, they are off. I do not expect them to jump on a team call for 30 minutes or jump on something that was scheduled. And then, of course, they needed that time off. I do not expect that. We will navigate through it, and then we will deal with it when they get back. But I recognize, again, every in an organization, some people are on call. I mean, we have amazing members of our trauma organization that are on call, pretty much 24/7 until they actually have block time off. And so not everybody is living into that space like them. But I also recognize roles like that exist.
That makes sense. So again, as much as you can share.
Yeah.
I like to say that we're in crazy times. And let's be honest, I think every most recent time throughout history is the new crazy times. But I say crazy times, and when people say, well, Samuel, what do you mean by that? I say, well, the other day I saw a few cars that had no drivers. Yeah. I have a friend that actually works in companies that are going to have flying taxis. Yeah. And I've heard that we're going to have the Neuralink implant available to up to 6 people very shortly. Yeah. And the capabilities beyond impairment are around the corner. So with all that being said, what's happening in the medical sales space, and specific to your industry, that maybe is a very exciting innovation that the world doesn't quite yet understand or know about?
I don't know if I can answer that one as completely, but what I will say is this. From an orthopedic standpoint, by 2030, 80% of all implants are going to go in with some type of technology. They're going to be guided, supported, implanted with some type of technology. So what does that say? It says that folks that are looking to come into this space, the best thing they can do is get comfortable with technology, to get comfortable with things that may seem on the fringe now. They're going to be gold standards soon and in the future. Get comfortable with AI language, practice at home. I've heard someone say that, AI as it currently sits is like a, first year, college intern. Depending on what you tell them to do, you're going to get the output. So you have to be very specific, give great details, give great instruction, and then you can get great output. It's going to get more and more sophisticated over time. And it's going to continue to learn and evolve as we continue to feed it. So get comfortable navigating and leveraging AI for various requests in your current work setting, whether it be education setting, you name it, as a student, all of those things, practice that.
So you're not saying learn coding. You're just saying maybe take a class that helps you how to give proper instruction to AI. That's what you're specifically talking about.
100%. And what it is and what it isn't, right? So even just some of the fundamental learnings, because, many of us still think AI is some, master computer that's going to learn all of our habits and take over, our lives and cars, and eventually, deem that humans don't need to be on the planet.
Right.
But, to your point, you've got these amazing technologies coming down the road. We're going to have flying taxis. As a matter of fact, I think one of the first cities is going to be right up the road from me, up in Dallas, Fort Worth. They've already got approval from the FAA to be able to fly at a ceiling of 10,000 feet or less. And so, when you see all of these advancements coming, the big question is, if that's where it's heading, how do I skate to where the puck is heading versus where it is? Sure. And so getting those trainings, getting those comforts and understanding, I think is important.
And I got to know your take on this. So I remember when we were kids, a lot of the things that are happening now, we used to say, what if that happened? Almost like, you remember the Jetsons, that cartoon, The Jetsons. Okay. So I just find it hilarious that I don't know what we thought when we were kids, what we look like when we were adults, but I'm not sure if we all thought that it would happen this soon and we'd be living the Jetsons, now. Yeah. One thing, though, that I did not think about is even if something's innovative and it's better for the whole world, there's still this commercialization that has to happen for it to truly be received and accepted by the world. For example, electric cars, right? Electric cars have been around for quite a while, but it's only now that they're becoming a mainstay. talk to me about what your opinion is around this commercialization and how well technology is or isn't received.
I would say prior to the last 4, 5, 6 years, where social media has leveled the playing field for technology awareness, I would say it was a lot harder to get, your blood, sweat, and tears of the innovation you were creating and finding an audience for it, and without
Sure.
literally packing it up in a case and taking it across to convention to get audience with people to take a look and see if it raised a few eyebrows. Now you can create very clever content, solicit support from surgeons, sponsors, companies, oftentimes without an initial meeting. And then when you have that live meeting, you're 3, 4 steps ahead of where you would have been otherwise. And so I would say it's moving faster. Some of these innovation adoptions and some of these new products are finding homes faster if they have merit. The challenge is if you built something, you take too long to build it, you take too long to introduce it. Oftentimes, if you wait years for it to be perfect, by the time you bring it forth, it's already outdated. So you have to be really, really mindful, really, really purposeful about moving at a pace that keeps up with trends in the market, and help yourself to find a home, maybe not the perfect conditions, but the right conditions to launch your product sooner than later.
Would you say that, of course, well, let me ask it anyway. Physicians now have an easier time getting products that they believe in out there. But I know that there's still this, I don't know, resistance to any physician's innovation that the rest of the community has to kind of get on board with. Is that still very much there and an issue, or is that even that subsided a lot and people are just kind of jumping on the next bandwagon that makes sense?
Yeah, I don't know if it's I wouldn't call it a bandwagon, and I don't know if I necessarily say that it's taking longer for innovation to take root. The societies and communities are even shifting in the medical space, where we're seeing, I would say, less of the national standards that used to be the conventions of choice and conferences of choice. Now these sub conferences and sub societies are starting to really take shape, and they're honestly taking quite a bit of the voice and leadership within their communities from a direction standpoint, because they're embracing innovation amongst themselves and introducing it to one another in very deliberate forums, and so they can kick the tires, poke holes in it, you name it, and test it against current techniques, current technologies. They're doing that on their own within these work streams now, where I feel like if something takes root and it makes sense, you leave a conference and man, you've got 10 new people using it across the country, 50 new people using it across the country, in pretty rapid succession. And they're finding VC money, they're finding, private equity money, and they're off to the races a lot sooner in some of these cases. And so, no, again, this whole social media / microwave society, I think, continues to pick up pace and speed like never before.
It sounds like now the goal isn't driving the innovation. The goal is getting all the people in the same room so they can drive it themselves. And that's because of what social media is enabled. That makes sense. So for you, Andrie, and again, what you can share, what's next for you? What kind of impact are you now saying you want to make? Yeah.
That is a great question, Samuel. What impact do I want to make? I would hope to make an impact such that people that look like me, people that look like my daughters, people that look like my neighbors' kids, you name it, people that have a story that comes from shores outside of America, but find their way here and have carved their way through this society and found promise. I hope they all find a home in medical sales, or at least a place where they feel like they could call it home. This work is so important to me for so many reasons. One, it's allowed me to create a generational impact on my children and hopefully my children's children. Number two, I get a chance to stand in the gap of healthcare for my entire family. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor, but everyone in my family, because of my current role and my job and over the years, will always call me now to ask me questions about things they have going on in their lives, when normally they wouldn't have said a word to anybody about it. They wouldn't have sought out care about it. So I'm able to spend the time to speak with them, give them the confidence that if they do seek care, it's going to be okay. Here's all the things that are currently going on in that space. And if you see a doctor, they've got 5, 10 different solutions they can talk to you about that could help you not feel that way anymore or live a better life. And that's not a part of getting old. That's something that we can fix. And so I love this impact selfishly just for what it means to my family. But I know the more and more walks of life that have a chance in this space, whether it be, a young, I would say country boy out of, South Georgia, that, finds his way to maybe work for a really prominent, distributor that we have in the area. And now they're able to, live where they want to live and still have this amazing opportunity and bring this value of this career and this knowledge to their entire community and their family out in rural Georgia. So there's so many different spaces and works in life. The young lady maybe up in Seattle who has always had an affinity for, engineering, but maybe engineering wasn't for her. But then she gets to work with some of the, say top, surgeons up in the Seattle area, as well as up in, Washington, and she's working on robotics every day, and contributing in that way. So those are the things that this type of career can provide. And so my hope is to broaden that impact, to make sure that we can do more with all of the strengths of all of the people, all of the resources, all the historic knowledge as well. I mean, that's the other thing people don't recognize. I've got a really unique privilege of taking on storied brands that have been a part of orthopedics since almost its entire inception in the US. So DePuy, Synthes, Velis, all of these brands now under J&J MedTech Ortho. And it's pretty awesome. There's a lot of history in that. There's a lot of pride in that. A lot of people who put, a lot of time and effort into building up what is, stands before us today. And so the impact for me is to how do I help it take, I would say, that next big turn, because this is the first, I would say, era of Johnson Johnson MedTech Ortho. And so for me, it's an awesome responsibility and an awesome privilege to help it not be what we saw yesterday. Mm-hmm. All of these changes were for a reason, to show up differently, to show up in the more bold direction that we know is necessary and that the market is calling for, that patients are calling for. And so it's my responsibility to help usher that impact alongside all of the amazing, 1,400 people I get a chance to work with.
That's fantastic. As you were talking, I was thinking about your team. Remote work, is that something that your division is very open to, or are you guys more in the camp of, we got to bring things back in the home office, and for those of you in the field, you better be out there, 8 to 5. How are they looking at it now?
Yeah, listen, I think every role is a little bit different, but we've got a really great situation where there's a lot of flexibility in all of our employment models, including our office models, such that our employees have the ability to work within the office setting and even in non-traditional ways. They're sitting on couches and lounges when they're in the office, and the companies did a great job. During COVID, did a ton of remodeling, such that it is such a healthy environment in the offices that so many people actually look forward to going into the office. But for those that are remote, again, it's just making sure that we protect the time for folks that are remote to still be able to be out and doing the job. We've got to be really mindful of the time we're taking them away from patients, the time we're taking them, I would say, from the opportunity to touch and interact and educate surgeons. So those are the things, I think that's that new balance.
Sure.
During COVID, everybody needed Zoom, everybody wanted Teams. And so, a lot of the face-to-face was kind of passe. But now we still, I would say, find time to get together face-to-face. We cherish that time now when we have a chance to be face-to-face. But yeah, remote work, I don't think it's ever going to go away.
Okay. And lastly, you said that you're doing mentoring, and I'm sure you're doing mentoring within your company. Are you doing any mentoring outside of the company?
I am. Doing a couple of big mentor, actually 3 different mentor opportunities. So one, I serve on the advisory board for the Larry May School of Business MBA program at Texas A&M. So I work with our MBA candidates, both domestic and international, there quite a bit. I'm also a mentor for the Kevin Carruthers Leadership Institute for African American first year, second year students at Texas A&M. Given that some of the DE&I programs and funding were stopped by the state of Texas, this provides an opportunity for not only our talents, our time, but our tithes as well to go toward helping first year and second year students find their way at an amazing university. And then last one is board for empowering women out of prison. It's a program that's a 9-month program within the Lockhart Correctional Facility in South Texas, where we inspire women to find entrepreneurship when they're released, such that they have more opportunities than possibly their record would provide them for the ability to have a livable wage, but also find their voice, be leaders in their community, and change the trajectory of their family and any statistics that have come typically with that. And I'm very proud to say we do that in partnership with the University of Houston, University of Texas, Texas A&M, as well as the prison board for the state of Texas and beyond. And so the beautiful part is we just wrapped up class 4, and we have to this date 0 recidivism of our graduates upon release. And they also leave the program with a 9-month business certificate from the University of Houston. So they're actually walking out with paper and an education they can be proud of. And we've seen some really great results as a result of it.
That is fantastic. For everyone listening, what type of questions should people be bringing to you? If they want to get some insight, where do you see, I don't know, what position are people in to kind of come to you with whatever that question is, if they want to get some insight into how they navigate their medical sales career?
What questions did they bring forth? I would say the why is going to be important. I love understanding the why from other successful people. What drives them? Oftentimes, there are quite a few similarities, but I love that question. And then also, too, when you find successful people, what does their day-to-day look like? When does it start? What's their cadence? What's their routine? Because there's something in that that lends itself to repeat success. How do they look at challenges? Talk to me about your most recent challenge, and talk to me about the success you found when you persevered over that challenge. I love learning lessons through the struggle and how people look at different challenges and how they navigate them and what's their process for embracing it. I love answering those questions in return. I will tell people all the time, I do not sleep well knowing that I'm losing. Some people love to win. I am absolutely allergic to losing.
Allergic. I'm stealing that. I'm allergic to
losing.
I am allergic to lose. You made that one up. I'm stealing that. I'm just telling you now. I'm stealing that. I'm literally.
You can borrow it. So,
So and look, Andre, having you on, I have so many questions. I mean, we could have like a 5-hour podcast if you let me. But we're gonna bring it to a close. But I still have a few more questions that I just have to ask you. So yeah, I think you're the perfect person to ask. We have DEI and we have MEI.
hmm.
I want to hear from you. What do you think about MEI? And do you put any value on that approach?
Well, to be fair, I think both approaches have value, right? And it's going to depend greatly on the environment that they're being deployed in, right? So, where's the company from a I don't want to say maturation process, but from an ecosystem, um, and whether or not I would say the most important thing is to look to find strides to make improvement. I don't care what label it's under. How do we make improvement? How do we make a better work environment? How do you make an environment where your talents within your organization or beyond have a means to be found, leveraged, and elevated so you get the most out of it? I think that's the most critical part of it. But don't be afraid of whatever it is you decide is the best recipe. Embrace it. Understand that everyone's not going to necessarily align with your ideals as an organization. But if that is the strength of your organization, it is important that you hold on to it and you feed it and you preserve it with every fiber of your being so that you don't fall, I would say, prey to the most common denominator versus being exceptional.
Sure. No, I like that. That's actually an excellent answer. Okay.
Well, I'm glad I was able to give you one.
Two last things. So you're gonna give us your day-to-day, from when you're waking up, what are your routines, so that everyone listening can learn from them. And then of course we're gonna have our lightning round. All right. Okay. So with that being said, please share, what is your day-to-day? How do you make it all happen?
So I cover quite a few time zones. So I'm typically up no later than, I would say, 6, maybe about 6. And for me, I like to get going with basic calisthenics. So I start every day and I end every day with push-ups, planking. Typically, still proud to say I can get sets of 40 in.
Wow.
So that's
Wait, so how many are you doing?
I'll do typically 2 to 3 sets of 40.
Wow. That's actually every day?
Every day and every night. Yeah, every day.
Whoa. Where did you learn that?
I learned it from an old Navy gentleman. He was an old sailor and just the most vibrant man I've ever met. Wow. And he told me his secret was just basic calisthenics. Now he does jumping jacks, and I don't tend to do the jumping jacks, but I also just make sure that I pay special attention to my core. And also I have 3 daughters, and so I also make sure I can still do push-ups for any needs that may arise.
Fair.
But all that said, I want to be here and I want to be active for my family. I know also oftentimes if I go into my office or go into work, I could be sitting for 6, 7 hours at a given time, or at least it feels that way. So those are things that are important. Take care of your core, take care of your energy. Coffee, love coffee. So that's probably my next thing once I get a good pump in. And then I'm on the in the matrix. I plug in typically around, I'd say 6:45, 7 or so. And I'm going through all of the different pieces of information that maybe I missed the day before. Okay. I have my whiteboard. It's actually near the door behind me that I check when I come in every day. And I put notes on there on things that were lingering. I make sure I tackle those before the day gets too busy. Check in with my chief of staff, check in with my assistant as well to make sure if there's anything hot on the wire, they keep me abreast of those things. And then I get at it. And I make sure I put a little bit of time in between critical calls so that I can think critically.
Okay, so by 8 o'clock, you're doing the whiteboard and checking in with every team member, or that's happening even before 8?
That's before 8 typically.
Oh, it's before 8. Okay. Okay. And how much time are you giving to that?
I mean, it's usually pretty quick if you do it active enough. And of course, we don't speak just once a day. So typically we're speaking throughout the day when things pop
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So at least a good, 15 or so minutes
Okay.
just to kind of debrief and get on the same page.
Okay.
And then jump right into it. Typically my calendar is pretty full. So that'll typically start also from either
Makes sense.
7:15 until about sometimes I would say 6 o'clock p.m. my time. And so again, it's a nice full day. Sprinkled in between there can be mentorship for folks. If I happen to have a block of time, I'll give 30 minutes or 15 or so minutes at a time, depending on what I can for that. And then, of course, other critical, commercial business needs as well. So everything from, P&L review, BP performance review, so business plan performance review, looking at supply chain with our operational teams, making sure we have enough, sets being, manufactured and deployed in the right places. So all the things you would hope. So yeah, that's I would say it fills up a good portion of the day.
So when do you hang it up?
I hang it up when a full day's work is done.
So generally, that's typically what time?
It can be typically 5:30,
5:30.
which 6:30 Eastern time.
Okay, so 6:30. So it's now 6:30. Day's done. What happens next?
Then you know what? I get a chance. I'll come out and I download with the family. What's going on? Talk to my school age kids every day. And my first question is, what did you learn?
Yep.
Because as far as I'm concerned, their job is to go learn something that day. So if they come home and say, oh, it's fine, I didn't learn anything, they can't move from that spot until after.
I love it. I just say that. I love it. Yeah, yeah.
So we're not going to school for lunch. So you got to give me something. And then I do my best to also check in with my wife. And if my son has basketball practice, I'm usually ushering him there. He plays AAU basketball. So we're there till, 8:30 at night. If he doesn't, then typically, we're in the backyard playing basketball or going to check out a car show where we can. He loves cars. And so we're always looking in the cars.
That is cool. So are you the family that has dinner every night at the table or not quite?
I can't say we are. My children, they're in as many activities as I am. I've got a nationally acclaimed dancer who's on a hip hop team that's gone to Paul Mitchell World of Dance competition. I have another daughter who's a captain and a leader within her dance troupe, and so just keeping up with her. And then of course my son has his basketball, and there's tournaments what feel like every other weekend for basketball. And then of course I get a chance. When I really steal away some time, I get a chance to take my lovely bride for a date every now and then, and we like to check out new restaurants.
So they have to know, how often is a date night? Once a week or once a month?
Not often enough. I'm not going to self reveal because I'm ashamed of it. It should be more often, not often enough.
Sure. And what time do you go to bed?
I try my best to get to bed no later than 11.
Okay.
But typically it can be sometimes 12:30, just depending on how things shut down in my world. So
okay. For all of you listening, I want to hear what pearls you stole from Andrie's schedule that you're implementing in your own lives. What's up next? I mean, what's like what is the thing you're most excited about right now?
Yeah, I think literally Monday, I have the opportunity to see the first global uni with our VELOS robotic system from a very prominent black surgeon down in the Houston area at the Houston Med Center. So I'll get there tomorrow and be well rested for a first AM case, but just really excited to see history made just down the road with a prominent surgeon there in the area. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Is there any resource someone that just heard this can go watch on YouTube or something like that to understand what's about to happen?
Yeah, there are some animations, I think, that are probably in place to see robotic uni procedures. And so I would say highly recommend going on YouTube. But I will say this particular procedure being a first of its kind with the VELOS robotic system, which is a very unique, and it's the latest robotic system actually in the robotic orthopedic space. It's about 4.5 to 4 years old, where the others are typically around 14 or so years old. So it's got some newer features and some newer kinematic opportunities that we're pretty excited about. But yeah, I get a chance to go see it firsthand on Monday.
That is fantastic. Last thing, lightning round. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. You have less than 10 seconds to answer each one.
Oh.
Are you ready?
I don't know, but I'm going to answer me.
All right. First question. What is the best book you've read in the last 6 months?
Leadership Pipeline by Ram Chandran.
Oh, that was quick. I'm going to have to check that out. Leadership Pipeline. Okay. And all these will be in the show notes, folks. Second question. What is the best TV show or movie you've seen in the last 6 months?
I really enjoy The Old Man. It's on, I think, AMC.
Okay. I don't remember the actor, but I think I've seen a preview. Okay. All right. Third question. What is the best meal? We want the restaurant, the item, and the location that you've had in the last 6 months.
The best meal in the last 6 months. Okay, I'll go with the pork chop at Perry's Steakhouse. It serves 2 people, and they cut it up into 3 hemispheres based on the tenderness and dryness of the pork. So it's a pork chop at Perry's.
Where's this? Where's Perry's?
They're all over the place, but yeah, they're, I know, throughout Texas, but they're in other states as well. But Perry's Steakhouse.
Okay, that will be in the show notes as well. And then last but not least, what is the best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
Best experience in the last 6 months. I would say the best experience I had recently was there was a young man that my son knows, and he was in a group chat and he was struggling with bullying and things at school. And the young man was talking about taking his own life.
Wow.
And my 10-year-old said he noticed that everybody in the group didn't respond back, didn't send encouragement, but somehow, some way, he found it in himself to ask the young man, do you believe in God? And the young man said yes. And he said, well, then that means you're divinely made and you're 1 in a million. And God has a plan for you to do something great. You may not see it right now, but you don't want to take that away from God. He spent all this time and energy making just you. And you don't want to deny, God the opportunity to do something great with you. And what that meant to that young man was he completely changed his energy. He would, come to group events after that in a different energy and light. He thanked my son, but I was just really proud that he found the words in that moment that honestly I didn't think I could find. So mental health is real. It's starting to get younger and younger and younger for our young people. And so to know that there are those out there that are able to live into this new reality and help other people come out of the other side, I'm really proud of my son.
That is amazing. That's amazing. Wow, your son, what a story. And your son got that way because of the guy that's leading him, which is you. So more power to you. And I love everything you're doing out there in the world, Andrie. Gosh, 3 years later, you're in a whole new level of success. So keep evolving your success. And I can't wait to catch up with you again on the Medical Sales Podcast.
I appreciate it, Samuel. Always great to see you.
Absolutely.
Much continued success to you as well.
Thank you. And that was Andrie Leday. Wow. I can't stress it enough. Right now, we are living in unprecedented times. Our childhood futuristic dreams are our realities. Which way the country is going or not is up in the air. And technology, specifically online technology, has put us into places that we didn't even know we'd be. It's an amazing time right now. And it's also an empowering time because of this technology, because of how up in the air anything is. I like to subscribe to the philosophy that anything goes. If you're a good person, want to do good things and make a big impact, there's no better time to do it than now. So as always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. We want to continue bringing you guests, continue bringing you this valuable information, all of these pearls, all of these insights. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already to the Medical Sales Podcast. If you don't know how to do that, visit our site, evolveyoursuccess.com. Scroll down to the bottom and subscribe. As always, we do our best to bring you guests who are doing things differently in the medical sales space. So make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a customized and personalized program that gets you into the medical technology industry as a sales professional, or any type of role for that matter. Become a top performer in your position and masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolvesuccess.com by visiting our site, filling out an application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and allowing us to get you where you need to be. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews on the Medical Sales Podcast.